What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Blue Collar Enlightenment Show, where we learn new things every episode through conversations with guests from all around the globe. I'm your host, Jonah, and if you're new, thanks for tuning in. I hope to earn your subscription. Today, we welcome Rick Dellaratta, jazz pianist, vocalist, composer, and creator of Jazz for Peace. Enjoy. Welcome to the podcast, Rick. Thanks for coming on. How are you doing today?
Pretty good, Jonah. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, I appreciate you coming on and taking the time and talking with me. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, not sure where to start. I was born in upstate New York, if you want to go all the way back that far. So I grew up in upstate New York. I went to Boston, actually, to study music. And then I stayed in Boston for a little bit because I was, making a living playing music, playing around, touring, doing stuff, and kind of if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. But then the calling kind of came to come to New York. It was kind of a place, at least at that time, where everyone went through at some point or other. You came through New York, almost like maybe in the early days of jazz, it was New Orleans, And then Chicago at one time was kind of the place that you had to kind of rite of passage. So I came to New York, and then from there, I guess the rest is kind of history. I did a lot of things as a sideman. Then I started doing my own records, touring in both genres. Then 9/11 came, and based on my witnessing those events, I ended up writing a poem called Jazz for Peace. And then things kind of took on a life of its own from there. There's so many stories. From that point on, the stories get amazing and crazy and amazing and could go on for, it would take a month to tell them all. So, you can pick and choose, and I can tell you whatever you want to hear. I could tell you specific things.
And you said you witnessed the 9/11 events?
Correct. I did. Yeah.
And
that's kind of taken on a life of its own now in the podcast world, because so many people want to hear that story because, there's not so many of us that have such a, bird's eye sort of scenario. But to tell you about that, basically, there was a girl taking photos of me the day before. And it was a kind of thing where, when you're an up-and-coming artist, what can happen to you sometimes is photographers will come up to you and they'll say, "Hey, can I have pictures of you? I want to take pictures of you, and I'll give you the copies." So it's free photos. And Linda McCartney got well known as a photographer doing that. She was down here in the West Village shooting Bob Dylan when he was just walking around with his guitar playing in little folk bars, Jimi Hendrix at Cafe Wa, all these well-known people. And then when they became famous, she had those photos. Next thing you know, she's getting called for the top shots. She gets called for the Beatles, and then she marries Paul McCartney. But, so to give you an example, this woman was kind of doing the same thing. She was taking pictures of me on the 10th. So on the 10th, she's taking pictures. If you ever see the CD called Jazz for Peace, you'll see a picture of me kind of in front of a dumpster, and she took that photo and numerous other photos. So the next day was 9/11. I get a call that morning from her, and she's like waking me up, not that it was really early. It wasn't that early. It was in the morning. But, she's like, "Hey," I was like, "Yeah, what's going on? I'm so sorry. I just don't know who to call. You came to mind because, you're the first name that came to mind. I just dialing your number." I mean, she was kind of frazzled. And she told me how a situation where, her boss's son had called from the other tower because he worked in that other, the first World Trade Center tower. And I think the other one had gotten hit. And he called his father, who was her boss, to find out what to do. The father was telling him maybe he should get out of the building just as a precaution. And that turned out to be the last time that her boss ever spoke to his son. And she calls me, and I'm like, she's like, "I don't know what's going on." So I said, "Listen, let me just run up on the roof and I'll find out right now," because I was on the 5th floor walk up, and all I had to do was just go up on the roof. I was the closest apartment to the roof of this building. I just went up on the roof and whoa, all of a sudden it was like, basically it was like stepping from the movie theater seat into the screen. You know what I mean?
Wow.
It was like you just stepped in the movie. Like I'm in the movie right now.
That's
all
crazy.
I could do was write words. I mean, I really, what could you do? You don't know what to do. There's no game plan, for something like, there's no playbook. You're just winging it from that point. I mean, emotions are coming over for you. You don't really know what to do. Plus, I'm by myself on a roof. So the only response that I ever had to 9/11 was the words of a poem, which I'm going to recite to you a little bit later with music. And that poem was called Jazz for Peace. And, to really simplify it, basically, all I've ever been doing since is trying to live up to the words of that poem. It's kind of things that are right. I mean, we all have an inert sense of what's right. We just don't do it because we're kind of told by society, or it could be by our parents, or it could be by our girlfriend. It could be anybody. Hey, you got to do this. You got to do that. Do this, do that. Go do this. I think there's a pop song, do this, don't do that. Can't you read the signs? That song. So, it's kind of like that. We're all doing this, doing that. But at this point, like, those words were my response. And it was kind of about time that I tried to live up to what I thought, was the right thing to do with what little time I have on this planet. And who knows, maybe it'll have a profoundly positive effect on others, or any kind of positive effect would be fine with me.
Well, we hope so too. And what exactly is Jazz for Peace? Because it went from the poem that you were talking about to something totally different, hasn't it?
Right. So it just, I mean, I wasn't at that point on that day. I just had some words to a poem. That was all, but, and nothing happened for a couple of weeks. I mean, everything was closed, all of the planes couldn't fly and all of that. But when the planes did open up, I happened to have a, very high profile gig as headlining the Savannah Jazz Festival in Savannah, Georgia. Where are you guys out of? You guys are out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, or is it Texas, or where were you guys? I know you're
Tulsa, Oklahoma is where
Tulsa,
we're at.
Oklahoma. Okay, so I had to go down to Savannah, Georgia. There's about 8,500 people there, and I basically recited the poem. Because it's all I had, from that. I had the poem, I recited it. But once I recited it, that reverberated, because 8,500 people got to hear me recite a poem. I was like, I don't even think Edgar Allan Poe had an opportunity like that, So here's all these people, and I didn't even know I was a poet. I mean, I was a lyricist, is what you could call me. But now I had written a poem. So I get back from that, and I get a call from the next concert I had, which was also very high profile concert that I had in upstate New York. And it was my trio, and we were picking up a very famous Cuban saxophone player was going to join us to make it a quartet. His name was Paquito de Rivera. And they call, and they're like, hey, we heard about this poem you wrote. What's going on? What's up? Is there any chance you're going to put it to music for our show? And stuff like that. So people are like planting the seed, in me, and I'm thinking, man, that might be good. And then like someone from the press calls, and he wants me to read the poem to him. And it ends up coming out in an article, So there's a preview with my poem in it before the concert. And in that preview, off the top of my head, I just said something that I believed. I basically said, listen, if we as a species fill our souls up with, our greatest qualities as human beings, such as, humanity, creativity, artistry, intellectuality, things of that nature, we will have a better chance to avoid the behavior that leads to destruction. Well, little did I know that got lifted by famous quotes websites. And so now if you type my name in, Rick Dellaratta, famous quote, you'll see this thing, on every famous website with quotes by Edgar Allan Poe or, Gandhi or Martin Luther King. So that became a famous quote as time went on. And again, now that article comes out, and now I did put it to music for the concert. So now the article from the concert comes out. Dellaratta starts concert out with Jazz for Peace. So in other words, I'm kind of being, it's kind of taking on a shape of its own. And I'm kind of like, well, what am I going to do next? And I think basically I thought, why don't I, do some concerts in New York City, which I started doing. And then I thought, looking at the words of the poem, why don't I help some outstanding causes in New York City? There's probably at least a dozen outstanding causes in New York City. Little did I know there's over 60,000 registered nonprofits in New York City.
Oh, wow.
But, I didn't know anything. I figured, hey, there's probably about 6, 8, 12. I'll help them out and, call it macaroni. You know what I mean? Hey, that'll be a little thing I do. So I start doing that. And of course, then I start finding out there are so many of them. People don't know the difference between one and another. And Jazz for Peace, might be able to play a role in that process and helping people. And then, of course, as you're going along, every door is opening up another door and another door. And we're realizing that these organizations need publicity and awareness. They need, because they start writing us letters after every event. So we start getting a letter from the actual organization. In fact, the very first one wrote me a letter that kind of astounded me because, if he hadn't written that letter, I wouldn't have thought I did so much. I would have just thought, nice try is what I would have thought, But he was like, no, the blah, 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 there were these dancers that danced with the music and things that went on that made his show kind of unique. And he just was thrilled. And so each one would say what was great about theirs. And then you start learning all these things. So as we start going along, I start to realize, hey, these organizations, they don't just need money. Some of them think they just need money, but money will enslave you, in all honesty. I hate to really be honest, but if you just get money for something, guess what? You are emboldened to that person who gave you that money. So a lot of outstanding causes started out as over here, and now they're this because of their funding. They're really just pawns of their funders. So the funder tells them what to do. Their mission statement is, long gone because they need that money every year or they're going to shut down. So, so these are the things that can happen. You can lose your autonomy. So what we realize, hey, these people they have donors and supporters that are exhausted. We need to reward them. So the Jazz for Peace event would become an opportunity to thank, reward, and rejuvenate the people that they had by making them VIP guests of honor. Now, the other thing is these people, they're tired. They wish somebody would join them. In fact, they wish that they could feel like more people were coming on board to be a part of this outstanding cause that they truly believe in. They truly believe it. They just wish the rest of the community would also see the light. Well, they get to invite their friends and people that they bowl with on Wednesday nights or whatever to also become VIP guests of honor at this event, red carpet treatment. And, they get to come to a VIP meet and greet, and they have such a great time hanging out and feeling special. I'm there, I'm there if that makes any difference. Sometimes it does make any difference, especially in foreign countries where they'll never get to meet the artist. Now they're meeting them in person. But they're also getting things from the sponsors, Mondavi wines or this one, that one, food sponsors, gifts. Sometimes they get gift bags. So they're getting all of these things. And that's just the foundation of what it is. So we start to learn. We start to do events for the Red Cross, for Habitat for Humanity, for Special Olympics, for, the United Way. And guess what? We learn from them. They teach us little things. Now we're loaded with fundraising tips that these nonprofits could it's like a jackpot that we could tell them because we're telling them we can tell you something from the Red Cross in one sentence. In another sentence, we could tell you something that we learned from Habitat for Humanity. Even those two organizations don't know. You know what I mean? What we know. because we know all of them. So, and some stuff we learn. I mean, we are open to learn from anybody because we just keep it making it. So that's what we started doing. How can we make this one better than the next one? How can we take this information and make that part of it? So now we realize that there are branches to this tree, okay? Because a lot of these organizations don't have sponsors in their so once we have this event confirmed with these VIP guests of honor and all that, now we're able with an event, because you have to realize, A, we have an outstanding cause in your community that you should have been supporting anyway, probably, but you can support them now. Now's your chance. But you're not just getting that. You're getting everything that Jazz for Peace is, which after 20 years is a lot. You know what I mean? You can look at Jazz. Well, who's this organization supporting these guys? Whoa. You know what? I'm going to take a flyer on this. I got nothing to lose to be part of this. Jazz for Peace is coming in. They're an outstanding cause. They're benefiting our community. I mean, there's too many ways to win, and not enough. There's a lot of ways to lose if you don't get involved, but there's a lot of ways to win if you do get involved. So that we get them the sponsors, and you see these flyers, and they have 5 local sponsors on the flyer. Now with the local sponsors, guess what? And all these VIPs involved, guess what we can get now? Publicity and awareness. Because a lot of times the radio station, the TV show, the people, they've already heard a buzz about this event, so they want to get on board. And what we have is what we have when you look at this empowerment tree, it's interactive. So you can click on each branch. If you click on branch number 3, which is publicity and awareness, I wonder what they mean by that. Well, you click on it, you'll see me on NBC TV. For an organization that's never even been on the radio practically, let alone national television. You know what I mean? So they're getting, and you can imagine the letter we got from them because of the publicity and awareness from that one branch. Yeah. But again, that's not all, that's only branch number 3. Branch number 4, now we're able, when you've got all these things together, now it's just like a tree. The tree's able to grow this branch because it grew that branch. You know what I mean? So now we're able to go after national. Whole Foods has been a big sponsor over the years, even before they were bought by Amazon. But just, companies that are national, because they see, hey, this is to our benefit. We're going to make some inroads in this community by being involved because the community's involved. So we want to get involved. So now they're getting major international sponsors, and then when you got all that together, and I can't even tell you how many times I've had to tell an organization this because they totally get it backwards. When you get all that together, and not before, but now, you can get new and prestigious supporters. You know what I mean? You don't want to go up to your favorite Hollywood movie star or your favorite or the mayor or whatever, with nothing in place, and, say to the guy, hey, will you come on board? And if you don't, we're just not even going to have the event. I mean, it's kind of insulting for those kinds of people. They want to see, hey, it's all together. You're going to be the cherry on this cake. Oh, wow. Now it resonates, So these people get new and prestigious supporters. And a lot of them in the letter that we get, they talk a lot about Jazz for Peace, how they looked at what Jazz for Peace did, and they thought, you know what? This must be a hell of an organization based on what I'm seeing on Jazz for Peace. Let me look into this organization now. And that's when they can say, hey, you know what? There's a lot of organizations, but I'm gonna come out in support of this event. And, so like I said, at the end of the day, when you put all these branches together, we try to make each outstanding cause a more befriended, a more funded, a more sponsored, a more publicized, and a more prestigious organization going forward than ever before. Some of those branches are long, some of them are tiny. Every tree is different. We have our ups and downs all the way through it, but at the end of the day, it is a helpful step forward, and that shows up again in all these letters, which you get a prize if you ever make it to the bottom of our testimonials page. You will get a prize. No one's ever made it, so the prize is sitting here. The jokes get better as we go along too, by the way.
So what made you pick jazz over other genres?
Well, I'll be honest with you. jazz has all of these qualities that are kind of in my poem that I'm saying. To this day, I believe even more of what I said. The thing is, you can't guarantee anything. There's no guarantees in life, but you can give yourself the best chance. You can give yourself the best chance. And you want to do that when it comes to conflict and war. You want to have the best chance to avoid the behavior that leads to destruction. You want to go in with your very best chances. And what gives you those best chances? Like I said in my now famous quote, you want to have humanity. You want to have creativity. You want to embrace artistry. I mean, look at all the good that music has done and the arts have done in the world. Look at all of the But here's the other thing. It transcends all those boundaries. So you're transcending. A lot of people are locked in this battle, even Republican, Democrat. Okay. I mean, we've got, what comes to mind when I just said that was an event we did in Las Vegas where there was a PDF and we have it for people to access. You go down and you see all these people that were supporting this event, and you see Republican and Democrat. And I'm like, wow, I guess the Republicans and Democrats really get along in Las Vegas. And they're like, no, they don't. They just like what you're doing equally. They get along when it comes to what you're doing. They both think it's great. So, you're finding common ground, you're transcending things. And the art form of jazz, first of all, it's probably, for all I know, it's our greatest gift to the world as the country of America. I mean, it's music that draws from all different nationalities, which is what America was all about. We were an immigrant country, people coming from all over the world. And, it has rhythms from Brazil and Africa. It has harmonies from Europe, etc., that come together and make this great American art form that is spoken all over the world. And it has the ability to have a profoundly positive effect on people. And we study that historically. In fact, on our website, there's a specific guy named, I think his name is Roy Black, or it's John, I think it's Roy Black. But anyway, his last name is Black. He's a white guy, though. But basically, the story about him is that he was in the Midwest, white guy named Black. He's in the Midwest. And this deal was he's supposed to be now trying to pick up a girl, because it was one of these dances where, you go and you're supposed to hopefully, meet a girl, and maybe you'll meet your future wife. I don't know, back what they did in the Midwest. And there was a band there playing, and he's supposed to be dancing. And after a while, he's just watching the trumpet player in this band, and he just can't get enough. I mean, he's out of place now. He's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. And he's staring at the trumpet player. And when he left, he was convinced that the trumpet player was a genius. Well, the trumpet player in that band just happened to be Louis Armstrong. That's who he was watching. And he was convinced of that. Problem was, Louis Armstrong was black, and he had been basically a racist by default growing up in that community. So it caused a lot of problems, like, well, how could a genius not be allowed to vote? How could a genius, blah, blah, not be allowed opportunities, this and that. And so, but he ended up having a profoundly positive effect on him, where he was, served, he was in the Senate, he was in the Congress, he served time. He was an author of many of our greatest documents, such as Brown versus the Board of Education. He wrote that. So all these things, at the end of his life, they asked him, how is it that you achieved so much in your life, and, so many people just, dial it in down at the country store or whatever and, call it a day. And he said, hey, he said one word, he said jazz. So he credited jazz for having the profoundly positive effect on him. So my point is, jazz really fit. And it happened to be that was the music that I was continuously studying, even though I was playing all kinds of music to make a living.
Interesting. And jazz music for you has taken you on to different areas around the globe as well, hasn't it?
Absolutely crazy. Yeah, really crazy. Well, I had traveled a lot as a jazz musician and as just a musician, period, before 9/11. So I had traveled a lot. If you go to rickdellaratta.com and you click on highlights, you'll see places that I've been to. But they're places where, you can get to go if you're a musician. There are places like, Tokyo, Milan, London, places that are kind of well-known cities. You know what I mean? But with Jazz for Peace, I started to go places like Rwanda, Ghana, Kenya, Uganda. That's just Africa, Tamil Nadu, India, Kathmandu, Nepal, Lahore, Pakistan, which, again, all of those places right there would take, it would be a full podcast for just one of those events because of the story so amazing. It's like, you know what it's like? It's like walking into the movie, like I did that one day. So with Jazz for Peace, I was walking into the screen over and over. I started walking into the screen all the time. All the time. Walking into the movie screen is basically what I was doing. I mean, check it out. Flying into Pakistan in the middle of the night, you know what I mean? Getting out, seeing like all these places I'd never seen before, having these people come up with flowers and all that stuff, putting me in a car that had tinted windows, watching it get searched for bombs and stuff at the hotel, which was the only hotel that was safe. I'm playing an event that had already had bomb scares. They couldn't have it in a church at all. It had to be held, all these kinds of stuff, going places and having sneaking in and out of places with attire on from Nepal, Nepalese attire to blend in, and going in and out of these schools with the kids and meeting all the kids and them throwing flowers on me and play. These are like, that's just one, you know what I mean? This is over and over again. Walking from the movie seat into the screen is what a lot of Jazz for Peace has been.
What's your most memorable moment through all those travels?
Well, there's been, as far as for me, there's been so many. I was telling a podcast yesterday about how, I was brought to the beginning of the Nile River, So I was right where the Nile River starts and, things like that. But what I was telling some people is that, one incredible learning event for me was I was playing a concert in Los Angeles for an organization that addressed bullying. And we were doing everything we do to grow that empowerment tree. And after everything that we did and all the work we did, I wasn't sure. I was having my doubts that it was really doing for the organization, all the work you put into it, you know what I mean? If it was really panning out, I was a little down in the dumps. I was having my doubts. And while I'm kind of basically, feeling almost blue, which is actually a song I'm going to play for you on this show. So I was feeling almost blue, okay? When you hear this song, you'll know how I was feeling. That's how I'm feeling. I'm feeling almost blue. And boom, this email pops in. And I see that it's from the woman who started this because her son had been bullied and she had nowhere to turn. And I'm like, oh my God, now I got to read this. And I'm bracing myself because I'm figuring it's going to be kind of like, thank you, thanks for trying. You know what I mean? Almost, you know what I mean? Like, nice try. I appreciate that, Instead, it had nothing to do with how the sponsors and the instrument I brought on the carry-on and put it in the carry-on luggage. It had nothing to do with the great band that I had set up, with players that had played with a legendary trumpet player named Freddie Hubbard, who had lived out in LA and made these classic records. And these guys actually played on those records. It had nothing to do with all these things that, you try to do to make this thing work. It was all about, guess who? Her son, who had been bullied. And the transformation that her son had, that this whole thing had brought her son, and he was just completely like healed out the other end, because he just couldn't believe that a response so powerful and overwhelming to him, because to him, like, some big star from New York City flies all the way across the country to, for little old me in 7th grade, bullied by my, by my classmates. So in other words, I'm reading this and I'm just like floored beyond belief, because in all honesty, what would I want to do more than anything is help that kid. Do you know what I mean? So to be able to actually help the kid, and that's what I mean by a profoundly positive, a profoundly positive effect. This kid, who the whole thing was all about, had a profoundly positive effect that could never have been done if you just got together with a bunch of, balloons. You know what I mean? Of grown-ups and balloons, But so basically, again, the fact that it can make a difference from one person made me believe that, the efforts are what's really important, and you do the best and hope for the best result. But just the effort itself could have a profoundly positive effect on one person, which is then going to resonate on God only knows how many people he is going to affect positively now that he is, in this whole other mindset.
And I'm sure you get a lot of those types of letters saying that, people appreciate what you're doing and everything like that. What has been the biggest one that has impacted you so far?
Well, that impacted me, and I want to say it on podcasts, because I think people who watch the podcast have to realize that, ultimately we're trying to help the people. It's ultimately the people that need to be helped, and the nonprofit is a conduit to help those people. You know what I mean? So even if you're getting 10, 20. And I mean, listen, if you go to we were in Nigeria a few months ago, and if you look at pictures of that, which actually I'm going to give you our Know the Funder page, you'll see a picture of us. It's jazzforpeace.org/knowthefunder.pdf. And if you would type that into your browser window, you'll see this picture of us standing in front of a wall of sponsors, because the event was so popular with sponsors in this city called Abuja, Nigeria, where we were a few months ago. And, again, all those sponsors are one thing, but ultimately, how do they impact the people that are being served? That's what it's really all about. You know what I mean? I mean, you can have every branch of that tree, but it's, at the end of the day, it's what kind of positivity were the people of the mission? How did that mission advance? The mission that those people have to advance their cause.
And what has been the most favorite? What's your favorite place that you get to visit out of all of them?
Well, the story, I've been asked that a lot, and I was telling an American Indian story a couple podcasts ago, and that was one where we went to New Mexico, and we had a tour of New Mexico. We were going to play in, I think one of them was the most well-known city, as if Santa Fe, New Mexico is well-known. But the other places were places like, one was the name of a TV show, like Truth or Consequences was the name of a city we were playing in. You wouldn't call it a city in New York. You know what I mean? Like, you could drive through it in maybe a couple seconds. I don't know. You're in and out of that city so fast. But it's called Truth or Consequences. And that was where one of the concerts was. Another one was in a city called Madrid, Madrid. Another one was in a city called Las Cruces. And that was for American Indians. And, as much as I could tell you that, I mean, there is a DVD called the top 50 venues performed at by Rick Dellaratta. It's a DVD, and you can click on it, and you see all these places like the Great Hall of Culture in Finland. Ronnie Scott's in London. This and that. And believe me, this place ain't on it. You know what I mean? Like this ain't gonna even make the top 1,000 venues I played. Okay, it ain't gonna. I mean, you could barely even call it a venue. I didn't even think it would make a list of venues, It was almost like a giant teepee or something. I don't know what that we were playing in. And it was, but and everything was going wrong, by the way. I mean, you name it, it was going wrong. I mean, it was like, whatever could go wrong, it was one of those Murphy's Law. Whatever could go wrong, this went wrong, which caused that to go wrong, that to go wrong. So the flight was delayed. This was late. We couldn't get the rent-a-car. We finally got blah, blah, one after another. So now it's not forget the rehearsal, because I don't know who these people I'm playing with are. I have no idea who those musicians are. We were set up by Jazz Beats Volunteers. So forget the rehearsal for this concert. There's going to be no rehearsal. Now forget the sound check. There's going to be no sound. Now, like we're bleeding into the concert, there might not even be a concert because I don't know if how I'm going to get. We don't know if we're going to get there in time. We get there maybe 20 minutes late, okay? And all I have time to do is walk in, sit down, and start performing because the place is packed and the people, the energy was like insane. It was almost like that. Did you ever see that? Did you see the Elvis movie?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Well, if you ever watch it, there's this new movie on Elvis. You'll see kind of this, he's playing in kind of a barn or something, but there's people are, what? So it was just, you could feel the energy in this place. Okay. And I don't know anybody. And I walk out, and all we can do is start playing because we're already late enough. There's no time for anything. We just play. Everyone's sitting there. The band set up, and so we play. And around midway through, or quarter of the way through, it's time for me, to announce these musicians. I don't know their names. So I said, hey, man. I'm like, what is your, and I'm trying to whisper because I don't want the audience to know this. So I'm trying to keep it cool. He's like, what? Name, your name. What is your name, dude? And he's like, and he tells me, he's like, Anthony, what, how do you say that? And we're trying. Finally, I get his name, and I'm like, then he's like, and I'm looking at him again. He's like, what do you want from me now? What's the drummer's name, man? I need to just, what's his name, So if they tell me the drummer's name, they say Louis Speaking Eagle. I said, I don't want to know his eagle's name. I need to know his name. What's his name? That's his name. So it turned out he was a Native American Indian. And so I announced him. But so the point I'm saying is the energy in that venue was as exciting as you would want, even if you're in Carnegie Hall. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So my point is, that is as memorable as some of the most prestigious places that I've played as well.
Do you still get nervous before you go on stage?
I do. But it's kind of a good kind of nervous. You know what I mean? It's kind of like
An
almost
excitement
like
build up.
Yeah, like probably what NBA players feel like before a playoff game,
Nice. And do you have a ritual before going on stage that you try to do?
I try to get in this. It's kind of like allow mode. So I'm kind of like looking for things to come to me, like messages or whatever, you know what I mean? Because sometimes if I just allow, a song will come that's perfect for this show, or something that I'm going to play, or something. Things will come that are specific to that moment, and that energy will enhance that specific performance. So that's what I do. I kind of go into allow mode.
Speaking of performances, would you like to go ahead and play that song for us?
Sure.
I'm
All right. So
sit
here's
on
a
back
song.
and let you go.
Yeah. So now here's the song that's gonna help you understand the funk I was in before that woman called and told me about her son, and then I'm gonna segue from that into it's kind of a free-form composition called Free JA, which we've been making a lot of progress with lately to help people kind of wake up to the importance of not losing our rights and how thankful we need to be for things like freedom of speech, the freedom for journalists to write about what they see, if there are any left, to preserve them and to not, persecute people who write about what they see, and things of that nature. And then I'm going to segue into the actual poem, Jazz for Peace, so you can hear those words that kind of were the turning point and what I've been trying to live up to ever since. Almost blue, almost doing things we used to do. There's a girl here and she's almost you. Almost. All the things that your eyes once promised, I see in hers too. Now your eyes are red from crying. Almost blue. Flirting with this disaster became me. It named me as the fool who only aimed to be. Almost blue. It's almost touching. It will almost do. There's a part of me that's always true. Always. Not all good things come to an end, now it is only the chosen few. I have seen such an unhappy couple. Almost me. Almost you, almost blue. I hear jazz for peace coming through the trees. In my heart it fills me like a celebration. I see the light and I want to follow, inspired by the past contributions of those that came before and laid the groundwork for us to build on. Universal language that is a gift for all mankind. When we speak it, people are inspired by the creativity and artistry that stands for peace, and love and humanity and intelligence that leads to reaching potential that we have in our souls. So we can raise our total conscience and see that the gift of giving is our greatest privilege. I hear jazz for peace.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that with us. That was amazing.
Thank you so much.
How long did it take you to pick up piano, and how long was it before you were able to write your first song?
Well, I started trying to figure out the piano on my own when I was about 6 years old because I thought it was a present from Santa Claus. Basically, I was staying up trying to catch him, and I was getting a lot of flack from my parents for doing that because they were kind of getting sick of it year after year. And I couldn't catch him too. I'd try and try. Next thing I knew, it was the next morning. I had fallen asleep, and I pissed off. How did I do that? I was going to get him this time. And this one day, this one Christmas, I just happened to be able to keep my eyes open long enough that I heard a loud ruckus at the front door and moving something and this, that, and the other, and I kind of was able to peek around the corner. I didn't want to get caught, but I was able to peek around the corner. I was upstairs and I was just peeking down, and whoever was moving that thing was fat, that's for sure. It's a big, heavy set fat guy moving that, and I'm like, that must be Santa Claus. I saw him. I didn't get caught. My parents didn't see me. I saw him. My parents didn't see me. This is a done deal. And he somehow, I don't know what he's doing at the front door. And I guess it couldn't fit, whatever they're moving couldn't fit down the chimney. And that's the deal. So the next day I was like, couldn't wait to see what he had brought in. And, I went down and I'm like, this big thing. And then I started, I was like, I better figure it out because, he spent all this time moving Santa, then really went out of his way on our house. You know what I mean? It's like he's got all these other houses, and he moved this giant thing in here. So, we took a lot of his time. And I started to try to figure it out in my head. I was like, wow, this could take a minute, and I'm playing it like this, standing up, and eventually someone ratted me out, because I was doing it. I didn't want anyone to catch me. And I ended up taking piano lessons. And then, one thing kind of led to another. I started playing professionally, so to speak, I think as a teenager because I was a paper boy. So I had these paper routes. And next thing I knew, my homeroom teacher was telling me that his kids play guitar and they wanted to start a band to play in the school dances and all that. So I was in that band, and that was rehearsals and all that. And then there was a grown-up band that wanted me to play with them. And they were like, don't. I said, they said, "Don't worry, kid, we'll get you in and out because they're not gonna throw you out because there won't be any piano player. So we'll just don't say nothing. We'll get you in. We'll slip you some drinks or whatever. You don't have to won't get carded." And they picked me up and drove me home. So the guy would pick me up and he would drive me back safe, for my mother's concerns and all that. So then my mother was the church organist. So she kind of dumped that whole thing on me. And that pretty much put the kibosh on my paper boy career, even though I had won a ski trip to Montreal by getting a certain amount of new customers within a certain time frame out of a raffle. So I thought I was advancing as a paper boy, but that was that. And that was really the last job that I ever had, that I've ever had.
Now the organ's a little bit different than the piano, correct?
Correct. It's a lot different. I had to take organ lessons, and you're playing those things with your feet. You're playing pedals, and you can't get get touch sensitivity on a church organ. So you have to. It's very different. It's It's just a different mindset to make that happen. But there's some amazing work that came out of the organ, out of churches, because a lot of these, great artists, I mean, you got to find some way to pay the bills. And a lot of them would be the church organist. That's how they would, pay the rent or whatever, people like Johann Sebastian Bach was a church organist, Messiaen wrote some great organ works. So Brahms actually wrote some good stuff. So I got to I got some of that in me, just that whole, the whole exposure to that world of organ music.
Interesting. And have you ever felt like you've left something there during a performance when you're done? Say you just didn't give enough?
A lot of times I know that there's a lot more to be had. I realize that I'm under a time constraint. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of times where I'm just like, I'm going to give all I have, but within this certain time frame. So I know that it won't be all that is there, but I can't, I have to do what I think is right for that situation. A lot of times you're playing for a situation, so it's not really the opportunity to do anything you want for as long as you want.
Right. You're
under a time limit. Sometimes with a band, they might be featuring you. It's like, hey, we're going to feature you now, but don't take up our whole show with that feature. You got, it's not almost like the drummer when you see a drum solo. I mean, if that guy goes on for too long, he's going to get in trouble, and sometimes they do. But you've got to, you have to consider those kinds of constraints. You have to consider those. Just part of being a professional.
I hear you, because I had that thought today. I was sitting there, I was kind of brushing up on some of the research I was doing for the episode, and I was like, and I started thinking about the past episodes, and I was like, I wonder if he feels that same way, that when he goes through and here's what he did, if he feels like he left anything out there on the stage.
Well, that's now, if you're hearing something back that you did, that's going to be a very different kind of that's a whole different type of a review, especially if you're in a recording studio, because now you're going to be judgmental to very specific notes or phrases or things like that. Should you do another take, those kinds of things. So in other words, when you're hearing it back, you're listening under a different sort of lens than as if you were listening to someone else's performance.
Interesting. Never thought about it like that. So do you have any songs that you haven't and maybe won't put out there?
Oh yeah. And every artist, you'd be surprised. I've seen some interviews of songwriters, and they'll talk about how they have hundreds of songs, 300 songs, and all is, The one, all you know is the one hit that they had or something. You only know maybe one or two of their songs, but they have hundreds of them, and there could be dozens of them that were hits. It's just that song was, they were in the right place at the right time at the right moment with that song, and that song, caught fire in the right place, or all those kinds of things. So, I mean, there's someone called me up recently who had played with me years ago, and they said, I always loved this thing that you did, and then that thing, his two favorite things. And he's like, he was going to stop by, in a few days or whatever, because he has a podcast. He wanted to interview me, and he said, yeah, can we do that on your? I said, you know what? I'm going to have to go find those charts. He says, what? You don't have? Because in his mind, I just have those, what he's thinking about, but those are his favorite things. But for me, they're like, I'm glad it's your favorite, but I have tons of things that, tons of other things besides that. You know what I mean? Even though you might listen to the other ones and still think that's your favorite. So, yeah, there'll be lots of stuff that I don't get around to, that the public doesn't get around to hearing, or I don't get around to recording. It could be, there could be a variety of reasons, but one of the reasons could be just that you only have so many opportunities to record so many things. Mm-hmm. Or perform so many things.
That's true. What's your...
those bands, right? There was, I got to tell you something. There was a podcaster, I think just a couple days ago, who said something very interesting from his own experience, and that is, you're basically a starving artist up until you get to a certain point where you now become someone who repeats the same thing over and over and over and over and over. So in other words, a lot of people, when they start making money, or when they start, getting rich or whatever, they're getting rich because they're satisfying a public need for one or two things that they do. You've heard these bands, right, that put out a record and they can hardly tour with it because they go out to play live and people just want to hear the stuff from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
They just want to hear their hits, and they can't even play their new album because the people just, they don't have time. So they're like sneaking in songs from their new album, hoping that the people are going to catch on. But it's a lot harder for them to get that new album played because the demand isn't even there from the audience.
Yeah, and I think the media has a big part of that because of the top 40 countdown and things like that. They don't mix it up. They play the same songs over and over again. And you get the new hit song, and then it plays over and over and over and over and over again. They don't mix it up and play, the songs on the album that you're not going to hear. Because isn't it the point of an album is to tell a story from the first song to the last one, right?
Well, I cannot even begin to tell you how frustrating that has been for artists. Big names will tell you that, they just were, because of course they want to be understood as a complete artist, as a complete musician, as they want their whole album to be listened to, that kind of things. But a lot of times it was just, hey, give us one hit song and we'll take these other songs as a favor to you, kind of. We just want to snatch your hit and, get your hit out there. I mean, I was on Prince has a fan club, and they had me on their podcast. And, the guy was talking to me, asking me about that kind of stuff, because Prince had gone through an incredible dilemma with Warner Brothers, but he was signed to a fat contract, and they're like, hey, we're paying you all this money, forget these ideas you have of, people understanding you as an artist and knowing, he's like, no way. I signed this to, I'm not giving up so it was an incredible fight between the record label and the artist.
Do you think that hinders new artists coming up and that don't have these hits? It's harder for them to get found like that?
Well, I think worse than that is the mentality, like music kind of stopped at a certain point. And it could have been, certain people, because a lot of times, see, if you talk to anyone who was around in the 1960s, that was an era where people could not wait to hear something new. They always wanted to hear something new. Give me something new. That was, hey, wait a minute, that was last week. Last week was a century ago, you know. Now you have people that always want to hear something old. You know, when are the Rolling Stones going to tour again? But they're 82 years old. Yeah, but come on, one more time, you know. But what about another last tour, you know, a final tour? Make this one the last one. You know what I mean? The people just, they're latching on to, you know, this nostalgia kind of thing. So you have that problem. And, you know, you also have the problem of, well, I think what you were saying was it's like music kind of stopped and people like, I don't know, it's almost like in a time warp. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying. They're getting kind of tired of the new same old songs, so they want to hear them old ones.
There's a problem with that. There's a big problem with that. Yeah. And artists, so you'll have an artist like try to make a new version of an old song.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Make a new version of an old song.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
And so what is your method for coming up with new music?
Well, you know, what's kind of amazing, see, I think there might be something about my ability to respond, because what people used to call Jazz for Peace too good to be true. But we responded by saying, listen, all these things we're doing, they are true. These are videos. This is me in Rwanda. This is me in, you know, this is, you know what I mean? Me in Salt Lake City or whatever, you know, for Habitat for Humanity or whatever they were. We actually did it. So you're not going to convince us it's not true if you want to think that. But the bottom line is, what you have to realize is, if a response too bad to be true, because nobody would have believed 9/11 before 9/11. They would have said, too bad to be true. It's too bad to be true. Nothing like that could happen. Well, if something too bad to be true can happen, so can a response too good to be true. So I think one thing's a good thing to realize is that from adversity comes a bit of a powerful opportunity. You know what I mean? Like if you're just floating around, you might not have a chance that you're going to have in a riptide. You know, if you're a surfboard in a riptide, you could get swallowed, but you also have a chance to do something on your board that you could never have done before that. You know what I'm saying? Yep. So what you got to hear today is partially because of a disastrous situation that's going on right now, where myself, Roger Waters from Pink Floyd, Noam Chomsky, the great, you know, the great Noam Chomsky, a lot of other people, Edward Snowden, all of these people have spoken out against, and that is this Julian Assange situation.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's you know, you're punishing someone, you're trying to say, hey, you know, we're gonna punish a whistleblower. You know, that's bad. You can't, if there's no whistleblowers, you can just do horrific things and no one will ever find out about it.
Correct.
You know, we're not standing against, instead of standing against, you know, the bombing of innocent civilians, we're punishing the person who reports about it, you know, and that's getting in the way of all kinds of other things related to journalistic integrity. And a big one is freedom of speech,
mm-hmm.
you know. So now what is my response? Well, my response is today, the 45th performance of a piece that I freely improvise, and I call it Free JA. And that actually comes from a type of music called free jazz, okay? But in one of my crazy stories, walking out of the movie seat and into the movie, I found myself in Haiti, where there was a giant banner above me, and it said, "Welcome, Jazz for Peace, JASS." Guess what that was? The real spelling of jazz.
Really?
Yeah. jazz is the correct spelling of the word jazz is Jass because it's a Creole word. And it comes from Haitian people who were first brought from Ghana, the slave castles in Ghana, which I had also played a concert over there. And I was the only one that knew this, by the way. Even the people in Haiti had no idea. I got to Haiti and I said, hey, your country, what do you think of our country? I said, your country looks like Ghana. I said, you didn't know that? We didn't. And I kept asking people, and I talked to people in the United States. Did you guys know that Haiti looks like Ghana? No, I didn't. People in Europe, no, we didn't know. We didn't know. Finally, someone said to me, you know that, Rick, but that's because you're the only person that's ever been to both Haiti and Ghana. You know, because I mean, you're lucky if you've been to one of them, let alone both. Anyway, here it is, the word jazz for peace, Jass. It's a Creole word. And what happened was they are the ones that started calling it jazz in New Orleans. Because they were brought to New Orleans. You know, New Orleans has all that what do they call that? Witch doctor type of stuff?
Voodoo.
New Orleans.
Voodoo.
Yeah. And where does voodoo come from? Haiti.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
That's right.
So voodoo, they brought their voodoo and their word jazz, Jass, to New Orleans, and they heard that music because those guys, when you're innovating something new, you're not going to get paying customers to, you know what I mean? They're not going to accept it until way after it's already invented. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you're just inventing it, you got to play for whoever's going to listen. And those were Haitian people. And they called it Jass. That's what they called it. And then we misspelled it as Jazz or changed the spelling however we did it. So, but anyway, how did we get on that? Oh, so the response. I think
the
we're
rabbit
talking
hole.
about, yeah, because what were we talking about? The response. The response of somehow we were somehow this ties into. So Free JA.
Yes.
Really originally was free jazz was what I'm playing. What I was playing is called free jazz. That came out of the loft scene in New York City. And I've played with some of those pioneers. And they told me, they said, man, we like what you do. You need to keep this music going forward. Keep this, this genre. And it's an incredible genre because, as you can see, it's so expansive and has so many creative opportunities and options to pull from. And for me, because I have so many experiences worldwide, I might play something out of a jungle in Haiti. You know what I mean? During my improvisation. I don't know where it's going to come from. I mean, I might play something Oriental, from an experience I had in Thailand. We just don't know. So I took the Z's off because they were misspelled. And I took the S's off because nobody knows the correct spelling. And now I had Free J.A. Wait a minute. Free J.A. Johnny Appleseed? No, Julian Assange. Hey, that fits here. And I keep doing these. And by the way, no way. I don't know who the New York Times listened to. I'm hoping it was a combination of all of us. Because like I said, there's a bunch of people involved in this, speaking out. But the New York Times is right across the street from Jazz for Peace. So I'm glad they did this because I didn't want to be knocking heads with them. They came out in support of freeing Julian Assange with four other very well-known news agencies worldwide. I mean, I didn't know them that well, but they're known in their country. So four other New York Times level, publication news agencies came out together in support of this movement that all of these people are involved in, and we're just happy to have been able to have played our role with these. It was 37 when they got their act together. These news agencies all came out. I had done 37 of these, but so anyway, that disastrous situation, putting freedom of speech in jeopardy and journalistic integrity, led to a powerful response. Do you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that was my answer to your question. I I try to do things that no one else is going to do if I'm not going to do it, because I kind of feel responsible. I'm like, I know to do this, and I don't think anybody else does. And so it's not going to get done if I don't do it. So I better do it because I'm the only one that's going to do it. So if you look around, you'll see I'm the only one doing this free JA thing. But at the same time, it's, it's an incredibly powerful creative force as well. You see what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And you come up with a cryptocurrency, haven't you?
Yes. So now that is so potentially so important. It's the world's first. You know what I like? You know how I can tell I'm on the right track? When people think I'm nuts. Because, usually I do it and I get, cause see, I'm at the point now where I've come up with so many ideas that I can catch that. Oh, there it is. There's the guy looking at me crazy. I might be onto something. Cause if nobody looks at you like you're crazy, it's probably not all that great. You know what I mean? You're either, you know what I mean? If they're looking at you crazy, you have a chance. You're either nuts yourself or you're onto something incredible. But
right.
These incredible ideas, they never are without people thinking you're nuts. You never see that. So this one is the world's first philanthropic cryptocurrency. And I would love to talk about it, but it's in such infancy, I can't find anybody to talk to me about it yet. You see what I mean? It was like the early days when I couldn't find anyone to talk about Jazz for Peace. Now everybody wants to hear this story about 9/11 on the roof of that building. They didn't want to hear about it that day, the day it happened or the months after.
Right.
Same thing with these situations. So this cryptocurrency is great because what it is what I'm doing. I'm reversing something called the Cantillon effect. And the Cantillon effect is really what our world is doing over and over and over that's creating a mess. And that is, you plop all this money down on the rich people, right? It comes out, it funnels into Wall Street. It's printed out of thin air. It's not backed by anything. Comes out to these people. And guess what hopefully is going to happen? It's going to, and you've heard this term, it's going to trickle down.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard that trickle down word? You've heard it, right? Yeah.
Times.
And come on, stick your hand out. I don't see no money raining down. There's no trick. There's nothing trickling down. I mean, yeah, maybe some little bit is trickling down. But what happens is in this trickle down deal, people who want to solve our world's problems, and as you know, and as everybody look around you, our problems are getting bigger, not smaller. Mm-hmm. They're getting bigger. And the reason is it's kind of simple. When you're trickling down, guess who's getting the money last? The people whose passion is to do something good with it. A lot of the world's money is stuck in, a huge percentage is stuck in like these Cayman Island accounts, offshore accounts, Zurich, Switzerland, some, freaking, safe deposit, whatever, all these wacky things. It just sits there. It's stuck because that person, it doesn't properly. And people who are passionate, and I know from helping 850 of the world's most outstanding causes, a lot of them are searching for funds 85% of the time. Listen, here's the thing. You can be two types of nonprofit. You can be a total fake kind. And then you could be the total real kind. And guess what? They both kind of suck, okay? Because if you're the fake guy, you've already been on the hamster wheel and learned that you're going to spend most of your time looking for money and only a few days to do the good work with that money that is going to advance your mission. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So you got 365 days a year. What good is it if 330 days are spent getting your money and then only 35 days are spent advancing your cause and your mission? So you got that guy. Then you got the other guy who's figured that out. He's like, that's enough for me. I'm going to go up to BP Oil, right? And I'm going to say, hey, I want to put on a climate conference. And they're going to say, really? Well, we're not so big on climate conferences. Bad for business. No, good for your business. I'm going to make you look like you're, blah, blah. Oh, wow. You're going to put us in we'll fund your climate conference, So now it's a climate conference, celebrating the polluter.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Oh,
So
yeah.
what you have are captured entities. Everything around you is captured. Okay, it's captured. That person, okay, is basically is like a tuna net, is what he really is. You go in there, hey, I want to clean the air in Utah, and basically he goes to his funder, who's the head of the smelting company, and says, "We got one for you down here." You see what I mean? Because that smelting person is his biggest donor. And guess what? He don't have to look for money all day if he appeals to the person he's supposed to be. You see what I mean?
That's an interesting aspect. Yep.
So that you got that. Now, the other person which we help and which we are looking for to come to us for help, they're really trying to do something because it fills up their soul, it fills up their spirit, it gives them internal wealth to feel like they actually did something on this planet, because if you do the other thing, I hope there's enough booze in the I don't know, I hope Tulsa has some good has some good distilleries for somebody who is, what I mean, basically did it the other way, you know what I'm saying, because you're gonna need a lot of it to drown out your soul from that type of a sellout. Now, but over here, this guy, you got some. I don't know. I know Tennessee has them. So anyway, so you go. So the other person, again, they got it. You're hoping for this trickle down. Jazz for Peace cryptocurrency. Guess what it is? It's called trickle because it's trickle up. It's trickle up. So guess who gets the money first? The people that are passionate about what they're doing. They're getting the funding first. And when they spend it to do their good deeds, which, by the way, shows up on the blockchain, shows up what they do.
Oh, okay.
It trickles up into society. It trickles up. Okay? Now, you don't have to throw out this other way. You can have trickle up. You could introduce a trickle up economy that's philanthropic using Jazz for Peace cryptocurrency, while you still have this trickle down thing for all of the congressmen and senators or whatever that are getting this money first, insider traders and all that. But at least these people can solve some of our problems.
Right.
And Jazz for Peace cryptocurrency is, like I said, it's the world's first and only philanthropic cryptocurrency. And it has a use case, and that use case is to introduce a new trickle up economy.
Interesting. We'll have to go more in depth on that on another show.
Exactly. Because I'll tell you something. The first podcast I was on, where I performed Free JA Part 1, okay, that was a person who wanted to interview me on the cryptocurrency, and then he found out about Jazz for Peace, and then he found out about my career just as Rick Dellaratta, and he was like, "Rick, I got to tell you something. I'm really sorry, but we're gonna have to do 3 interviews because no way, So we just did one whole on cryptocurrency, one on me, and one on Jazz for Peace. So if you ever go back, it's actually called jazzforpeace.org/freeja, FREEJA.PDF. And that you'll see 1, 2, and 3 is all him. Because, when he found out about the cryptocurrency, there was no way he could just get it all in one show.
Well, I'm sure that we could sit down and we could get so many different stories out of you and different information going. I only have a few more questions for you today.
Mm-hmm.
And what does the future of your music look like?
Well, okay, so that's twofold too. Okay, so there's the future of jazz itself. Jazz is booming from an educational standpoint. There are zillions of people studying it. Young kids want to study this art form, and the schools are just turning out these very skilled musicians, and that's creating, I think, an appreciation for the art form. So, I think there's some good things that can come out of that. It's creating a problem because there's not enough venues for them to perform in. and all of those problems. But it is creating a lot of, I should just say, attention to the art form. A lot of people understand it better. They're listening better. Their interest has created an interest. So you have that side of it. Then you have the philanthropic side of it, which I feel is at an infancy stage. A lot of people look at Jazz for Peace and say, wow, you've done all these things. And I hate to say it, I feel like we're Apple Computer when they had that big giant piece of crap, really. Now, you know what I mean? It weighed a ton. And I mean, do you remember that old computer?
Yeah, it had a handle on the back side of it so you can carry it. Yeah.
You know, I left my windows open and my whole apartment open in New York City once just so someone could come in and steal that thing and get the hell out of there. And they did. They came in and took it. They left a lot of the other stuff because they're like, oh, we're going to take this thing. And I was like, go for it, dude. Get that shit out of here. I wasn't home when it happened, but I was like, it was exactly what I wanted them to do. Come in, see that. Don't go through everything else because there's enough time and it's heavy. It's going to take 2 people to move it. So it was a hurried job. I got robbed in a hurry and they took the biggest piece of crap that I've ever seen.
Oh, that's beautiful. All right. What has been the most enlightening moment of your journey so far?
I think the most enlightening moment of my journey is the realization that every single one of us is unique, special. There's only one of, and has the ability to do profoundly amazing things on this planet and help others. I mean, just every single one of us has that ability. So, I mean, in certain aspects, there's something phenomenal and special in every single person. I mean, there's, you know, if I look properly, I will see things in you that I could never do myself in a million years. You know, you will me, I will, you know, and it's just, so that's kind of enlightening just to know that every person is so amazing and has so much potential. Whether or not they allow that potential to happen is a whole nother story. You know, I mean, so many people are doing things destructive with their lives and with their money and with their, with all these addictions and all that stuff, you know, money being one of them.
Yeah, that's true. What's something that you can tell this younger generation about music and something to motivate them to keep going?
Well, I would like to see every young musician check out what we do because we are looking to help artists. We have artist grants. We have artist grant opportunities within our program. And just like we help outstanding causes, we can do the same for performing artists to help them get more publicized, more prestigious, more, help them getting funding and sponsors and things of that nature. So I think, you know, there's a place for them with Jazz for Peace. We're hoping that they will kind of carry the torch as Jazz for Peace expands and grows and the mission of Jazz for Peace grows. We'd like to see a little bit of Jazz for Peace in all of them.
Amazing. And where can everybody find you? You named a couple of websites, a couple of different things. Where's your main page?
Well, the best thing to go to get a hold of us is, let's say, watch your show. And I hope the next time we do a show with you, it's to promote a show in Tulsa. That's what that would be the best thing for me. Because Jazz for Peace right now, the score is like, you know, Japan 7, Tulsa 0. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you know, Africa 9, Tulsa 0. Yeah, so we got to get Jazz for Peace to Tulsa, doing something. And what I'm hoping is that someone will watch your show. It could even be the person at the venue you told me in Tulsa, you know, watches this show and sends an email, info, just our generic email address, info@jazzforpeace.org, info at jazz, Jazz, the wrong spelling, FORPEACE.org. and send an email. Hey, I watched the show you did with in Tulsa, and we're from Tulsa. We'd like to explore what Jazz for Peace might be able to do for either our venue, an outstanding cause, having you out as a guest artist, whatever, something like that. And that's an easy way. Now, here's another really cool thing that people can do right now if they forget everything. They could just type into Google NY Times Jazz for Peace. And right now, for a limited time only, I hate to sound like I'm selling a hamburger here, but I don't know how long this is going to last. Just on the last, I think last week, someone told me this. They said, yeah, I went to Google and I typed in NY Times Jazz for Peace, and this thing came up. And what comes up, you can click on it, read about what we're doing, but there's these little links you can click on from there that, get you down the rabbit hole, like you were saying.
Awesome, man. And I appreciate you coming on the podcast. And like I said, you're welcome anytime, and I hope for future conversations. And we will get together. I've been meaning to stop by and talk to the owner of that specific spot that I was talking about, and we'll try to get something going. I think that'd be a pretty awesome little thing that we could do.
Let's do that. And you know what? Why not use this podcast as, bait or whatever,
That's what I'm saying. I'll go over there and slap a couple of stickers on his building, make sure he sees it.
Fantastic.
All right, man. I appreciate you coming on, and thanks everybody for listening. That's all the time we have for today. Head over and check out our website, thebceshow.com, where you can subscribe to the email list and contact us. But remember to leave us a rate and review. Helps the podcast with that pesky algorithm. Thanks for listening, y'all.